Most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they start their day on autopilot. In 2026, happiness will not come from doing more. It will come from doing what matters first. Every morning, before the world demands your attention, you are given a quiet moment. A moment where you decide who is in control, you or everything else. Happy people don't wake up motivated. They wake up intentional. They begin the day by choosing clarity over chaos. They don't check their phone first. They check their direction first, because when you start your day reacting, you spend your life reacting. One powerful habit is waking up with purpose, not pressure. Ask yourself one simple question: why does today matter? When you know your why, even the smallest actions feel meaningful. Another habit is movement, not to chase perfection, but to remind the body it's alive. A short walk, stretching, breathing. Happiness begins when the body feels safe and strong. Gratitude is not pretending everything is perfect. It's recognizing that something is working, even when everything isn't. A grateful mind is a resilient mind. Happy people protect their mornings. They don't let the news, emails, or other people's urgency steal their peace. They create before they consume. They think before they scroll. They speak kindly to themselves, because the voice you hear most in your life is your own, and that voice should build you, not break you. And finally, they commit to one small win, not 10 goals, not overwhelming plans, just one meaningful step forward. Progress creates hope. Hope creates happiness. If you want a happier life in 2026, don't wait for a perfect year. Start with a better morning, because when you win the morning, you don't just change your day, you change your life. Most people begin their mornings already behind, not because they lack discipline or ambition, but because they wake up and immediately hand control to the outside world. The phone lights up, notifications appear, news headlines shout urgency, and before the day has even started, their mind is already reacting. Reaction feels productive, but it is not leadership. When you react first, you allow other people's priorities, fears, and deadlines to decide how your day will unfold. Intention is different. Intention is a decision made before distraction arrives. It is the quiet choice to lead yourself instead of being led by noise. Starting the morning with intention means recognizing that the first few moments after waking are not ordinary moments. They are powerful because the mind is still open, still forming direction. Whatever enters your awareness first often sets the emotional tone for the entire day. When that first input is chaos, comparison, or urgency, your nervous system stays in defense mode. But when the first input is calm and deliberate, the brain learns that it is safe to focus, to think clearly, and to choose wisely. This is not about controlling every minute. It is about controlling the first minute. Reaction makes you busy. Intention makes you effective. A reactive morning forces you to answer questions you did not choose, solve problems you did not create, and absorb stress that does not belong to you. An intentional morning asks one simple thing: what deserves my energy today? That question alone changes how you walk, how you speak, and how you work. It creates a filter. Not everything gets access to your attention, and that is how focus is protected. Control in the morning does not require rigid routines or extreme discipline. It requires awareness. Awareness of how quickly the mind can be hijacked and how easily peace can be lost. Choosing not to check your phone immediately is not avoidance. It is self-respect. Choosing to sit in silence, breathe, stretch, or reflect is not laziness. It is preparation. When you slow down on purpose, you speed up with clarity later. Intention also shapes identity. When you decide how your day begins, you send yourself a powerful message. My time matters, my mind matters, and my direction matters. That message builds confidence quietly. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like you are participating in it. Even on difficult days, intention creates stability. You may not control outcomes, but you can always control your entry point into the day. The world will always demand something from you. Emails will come, people will need answers, problems will need solutions. But those things do not deserve your attention before you give it to yourself. When you win the morning through intention, reaction loses its grip. You don't become disconnected from reality, you become grounded in it. And from that grounded place, every decision you make carries more purpose, more calm, and more strength. Many people wake up knowing what they need to do, but not knowing why they are doing it. They move through their day completing tasks, answering messages, attending meetings, and checking boxes, yet something feels empty. The problem is not a lack of activity, it is a lack of meaning. When the why is missing, even important work feels heavy. But when purpose is clear, even the simplest task carries weight. Defining your why early in the day changes how everything that follows is experienced. Your why is not a grand statement meant to impress others. It is a quiet truth meant to guide you. It answers the question of what truly matters beneath the surface of goals and responsibilities. When you begin your morning by reconnecting with that reason, you stop working on autopilot. You start working with intention. Purpose acts like an internal compass. It does not tell you how fast to go, but it tells you which direction is worth traveling. When purpose is defined early, the mind becomes more resilient. Stressful tasks lose their power to overwhelm because they are no longer isolated actions. They are connected to something larger. Sending an email is no longer just communication, it becomes progress. Exercising is no longer a chore, it becomes preparation. Rest is no longer wasted time, it becomes recovery. Purpose reframes effort, turning routine into contribution. Without a clear why, motivation becomes fragile. You rely on mood, energy, or external rewards to keep going. That is why many people start the day strong and fade by midday. But purpose creates endurance. When you remember why something matters, you don't need constant excitement to continue. You develop patience with the process because the outcome is worth it. Purpose gives you the strength to stay consistent even when the work feels repetitive or slow. Defining your why early also protects your focus. Not everything deserves your attention, and purpose helps you decide what does. When distractions appear, when demands multiply, you are able to say no without guilt. You understand that time spent on what matters most is not selfish, it is responsible. Purpose simplifies decision making. It reduces mental noise and replaces it with clarity. Purpose does not remove difficulty, but it gives difficulty meaning. Challenges feel different when they serve something important. They become signals of growth instead of signs of failure. When your why is present, setbacks don't erase progress, they refine it. You stop asking, "Is this worth it?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Defining your why early is not about planning the entire future. It is about anchoring the present moment. It reminds you who you are becoming and why today's actions matter in that journey. When purpose leads the day, even the smallest effort feels aligned, and alignment is what turns ordinary days into fulfilling ones. The mind was never designed to wake up and immediately sit still under pressure. It was designed to move first, to awaken through motion, to find balance through rhythm. When the body remains inactive, the mind carries the weight alone, and that weight often turns into anxiety, restlessness, or emotional fatigue. Moving your body early in the day is not about fitness goals or appearance. It is about grounding your thoughts, stabilizing your emotions, and reminding yourself that you are not trapped inside your own head. Physical movement acts as an anchor because it brings attention back to the present moment. When you stretch, walk, breathe deeply, or simply change posture with awareness, the nervous system begins to settle. Stress hormones decrease, oxygen flow improves, and the brain receives a clear signal that it is safe to focus. This is why even a few minutes of movement can shift your mood more effectively than hours of overthinking. The body speaks a language the mind understands instantly. Emotions often feel overwhelming because they remain unexpressed physically. Worry, frustration, and tension accumulate silently, tightening muscles and shallow breathing. Movement gives those emotions a release. It allows energy to circulate instead of stagnate. You may not solve every problem by moving your body, but you create the emotional space needed to approach problems calmly rather than reactively. A calm body creates a calm perspective. Movement also builds self-trust. Each time you choose to move, even when motivation is low, you prove to yourself that you can act without waiting for perfect conditions. That sense of capability strengthens emotional resilience. You begin to associate movement with relief rather than effort, and your mind learns that discomfort is temporary and manageable. This lesson carries into every area of life, especially during stress. The quality of movement matters more than intensity. Slow, intentional motion can be just as powerful as high-energy exercise. A walk in silence, light stretching, or controlled breathing reconnects you with your physical presence. This connection is grounding. It reminds you that you exist beyond your thoughts, beyond yesterday's worries and tomorrow's fears. When the body feels stable, emotions follow. Movement also interrupts negative mental loops. When the mind circles the same thoughts repeatedly, the body provides an exit. Changing physical state changes mental state. This is why people often find clarity while walking or feel lighter after stretching. Motion creates momentum, and momentum brings hope. By moving your body to anchor your mind, you establish emotional balance as a daily practice, not an occasional reaction. You stop treating your mental health as something separate from your physical self. Instead, you recognize them as partners. When the body is respected, the mind responds with clarity, patience, and strength. And in that balance, you begin the day grounded, capable, and emotionally steady. Gratitude is often misunderstood as a passive feeling or a polite response to good circumstances, but in reality it is an active practice that strengthens the mind. It does not require life to be perfect, nor does it ask you to ignore difficulties. Gratitude simply asks you to notice what is still working, even when many things are not. This awareness builds resilience because it shifts attention from what is missing to what is supporting you, and that shift changes how challenges are experienced. When the mind focuses only on problems, it begins to believe that struggle is permanent. Stress feels heavier, setbacks feel personal, and small obstacles appear overwhelming. Gratitude interrupts this pattern. It reminds the brain that difficulty is not the whole story. There are moments of support, progress, and stability that coexist with uncertainty. By acknowledging them, you regain emotional balance. This does not make you unrealistic. It makes you mentally flexible. Resilience is not about avoiding hardship. It is about recovering from it. Gratitude accelerates recovery by strengthening perspective. When you appreciate what remains steady in your life, you create a foundation that can hold you during change. Even simple acknowledgments, such as having time, health, or the ability to try again, reinforce a sense of capacity. This sense of capacity is what allows you to endure pressure without breaking. Gratitude also trains the mind to find meaning. Instead of asking why something went wrong, you begin asking what is still available. This question opens emotional space. It reduces the intensity of disappointment and makes room for learning. Over time, the brain becomes more skilled at navigating uncertainty. It learns that discomfort is not a threat, but a phase. This understanding builds confidence and calm. Appreciation strengthens relationships as well. When you notice and value the efforts of others, connection deepens. Strong connections provide emotional support, and emotional support is essential for resilience. Gratitude turns ordinary interactions into sources of strength. It reminds you that you are not facing life alone, even when challenges feel isolating. Practicing gratitude also builds emotional discipline. It teaches you that emotions can be guided, not controlled by circumstance. By choosing appreciation regularly, you become less reactive to stress and less dependent on external validation for happiness. You develop an inner steadiness that does not collapse when plans change or expectations are unmet. Gratitude is not a denial of pain, it is a companion to it. It allows you to acknowledge struggle without being consumed by it. As appreciation becomes a habit, resilience becomes a natural response. You bounce back faster, think clearer, and remain hopeful longer. Happiness grows quietly in this space, not as constant joy, but as a deep sense of stability and trust in your ability to handle whatever comes next. Focus and peace are not accidental states, they are protected states. In a world where information is endless and always available, the greatest threat to clarity is not a lack of knowledge, but an excess of noise. When you begin your day consuming information before creating anything of your own, you allow other people's thoughts, fears, opinions, and priorities to shape your mental space. By the time you attempt to focus, your mind is already crowded. Creating before consuming is a deliberate choice to guard that space and preserve inner calm. Consumption puts the mind in a reactive position. News, messages, and social media are designed to trigger emotion, urgency, and comparison. Each piece of information pulls attention in a different direction, fragmenting focus and increasing mental fatigue. Creation does the opposite. It organizes thought, strengthens attention, and builds a sense of control. When you create first, whether by writing, planning, thinking, or working on something meaningful, you establish direction before distraction arrives. Creating before consuming is an act of self-leadership. It communicates that your ideas deserve space before the world's demands enter. This practice is not about avoiding information, but about timing it wisely. Information is useful only when your mind is prepared to process it. When consumed too early, it overwhelms rather than informs. When consumed after creation, it becomes a resource instead of a burden. Peace is often lost not through major events, but through constant interruption. Each notification, headline, or update pulls attention outward, leaving little room for reflection. Over time, this pattern trains the brain to seek stimulation instead of depth. Creating first retrains the mind to value presence. It strengthens the ability to stay with a thought long enough for it to mature. This depth is where insight and calm emerge. Protecting focus also protects emotional energy. When you consume information without intention, you absorb emotions that are not yours. Fear, anger, urgency, and comparison quietly influence mood and decision making. Creating anchors you emotionally. It reminds you of your priorities and values. From this grounded state, external information has less power to destabilize you. Creating does not need to be dramatic or public. It can be as simple as outlining your day, journaling, reflecting, or working on a meaningful task. The act itself is what matters. It signals to the mind that you are in control of your attention. This sense of control reduces anxiety and increases confidence. When you protect your focus and peace by creating before consuming, you build a buffer between yourself and the world. You become selective instead of scattered, calm instead of rushed, intentional instead of reactive. Over time, this practice reshapes how you experience information, work, and life. Peace becomes less fragile, focus becomes more natural, and your energy is spent on what truly matters rather than what simply demands attention. Happiness is often imagined as a sudden breakthrough or a major achievement, but in reality, it is built quietly through small, consistent progress. When people aim too high too quickly, they create pressure instead of momentum. The mind becomes overwhelmed, motivation fades, and self-doubt grows. Committing to one small win each day shifts the focus from perfection to progress. It replaces unrealistic expectations with achievable action, and that change alone transforms how effort feels. A small win is powerful because it is attainable. It does not require ideal conditions, endless motivation, or complete certainty. It simply requires commitment. When you decide on one meaningful action and complete it, you create a sense of closure and control. This feeling strengthens confidence. The brain registers success, no matter how small, and success encourages repetition. Over time, these small victories compound into real change. Consistency matters more than intensity. A single day of massive effort cannot compete with steady daily progress. Small wins reduce resistance because they lower the emotional cost of starting. When a task feels manageable, you are more likely to begin. When you begin, momentum follows. This momentum builds trust in yourself. You stop seeing effort as exhausting and start seeing it as reliable. Small wins also protect mental health. When goals are too large, failure feels personal. Missed expectations lead to guilt and frustration, but when the focus is on one achievable step, setbacks lose their power. Even on difficult days, one small win provides stability. It reminds you that progress is still possible, even when energy is low or circumstances are challenging. Committing to one small win daily also sharpens focus. Instead of scattering attention across endless to-do lists, you identify what truly matters most today. This clarity reduces stress. You stop measuring your worth by how much you do and start measuring it by what you move forward. This shift creates satisfaction at the end of the day, not because everything was completed, but because something important was. Small wins shape identity. Each completed action reinforces the belief that you are someone who follows through. Identity is built through repeated behavior, not grand intentions. When you consistently keep small promises to yourself, self-respect grows. That self-respect becomes the foundation for lasting happiness, because happiness is deeply connected to trust in yourself. Over time, small wins create visible progress. They turn abstract goals into lived experience. Growth becomes steady rather than stressful. Happiness emerges not as constant excitement, but as quiet confidence and peace. By committing to one small win each day, you stop chasing happiness and start building it, one intentional step at a time. Here is a suitable, powerful ending that naturally ties together the entire speech and leaves the listener inspired, grounded, and motivated. Perfect for a long-form motivational talk. So as you move forward, remember this. Happiness is not something you wait for, and it is not something you find by accident. It is something you build quietly and deliberately every single morning. When you start your day with intention instead of reaction, you reclaim control of your time and your mind. When you define your why early, even the smallest actions begin to matter. When you move your body, you anchor your emotions and steady your thoughts. When you practice gratitude, you strengthen your resilience. When you protect your focus and create before you consume, you preserve your peace. And when you commit to one small win, you turn effort into progress. None of these habits are dramatic, and that is their power. They do not require perfect circumstances, endless motivation, or a complete life overhaul. They require awareness, consistency, and the courage to choose yourself first. Over time, these small daily choices reshape how you think, how you feel, and how you live. If you want a happier year ahead, don't chase happiness. Build the conditions where it naturally grows. Start tomorrow morning, start small, start intentionally, because when you honor the morning, you honor your future. And that is how lasting happiness is created.